One constant in the American economy is change. Half the dollars we spend are for products that didn't exist 50 years ago. One hero in this story of progress and change is a dynamic force called a salesman. With a sample case and a smile, he became a symbol of American enterprise. But do these legendary knights of the road still exist? Do they still go roaring about the countryside, battering down doors and sales resistance with sheer guts, charm, and selling savvy? Or have new demands of American business changed the salesman, too?
I can only speak for myself, but I certainly don't spend much time in trains or hotels. The only trip I took last year, business trip, was to a convention in Bermuda. Oh, I call on a lot of customers, but they're all near here.
My work is about as different from the old-line salesman's as you could find. The product I sell didn't even exist in its present form 10 years ago. I spent all of last year working right out of this office. The sales proposals I'm working on, some of them run up to $1 million or more. Of course, I don't have to do it all alone.
20 years ago, a man with my job would have been calling on 20 stores a day. Today, I've got just one customer, and I see them every day. Now, this is their headquarters. It's just about a 5-minute walk from my own office.
These men are a far cry from Arthur Miller's Willie Loman and Meredith Wilson's Music Man. What is it that has changed?
I still toil a good 8 hours a day, sometimes more. But if I had to say what's different from the old days, I'd say it's the emphasis on the customer's point of view.
This man is with a medium-sized chemical company, the plastics division. In the course of selling his product, he calls on a variety of customers. And wherever he goes, he knows everybody, from the man in the parking lot to the president of the company.
I have to know everybody, because I never know where I'm going to pick up some useful information. Last week, the guard here told me about a brand new competitor who had made a call the day before. Because let's face it, chemicals are chemicals. And there isn't that much price differential between my product or my competitors. So what I have to sell is my company's reputation and the technical know-how that's behind me. Engineers and chemists. And my own reliability. That's all there is.
To keep up this elaborate liaison with his best customers, he calls on them often and regularly, from top to bottom. He knows the men in production by their first name. He understands the details of their manufacturing process, whether they make toys or medical instruments. And if something goes wrong, he can find out about it and take care of the complaint before his customer's top brass even hears about it. He checks with people in charge of inventory and finds out whether his own deliveries have been made on schedule. He keeps up with new technical developments. And when he gets to the top executives, again, he gives and receives information. He hears about a new process or a new market. He researches it, presents the facts to his customers' marketing people, and it may mean an increase in his order. Good for them and good for him, too.
I spend a lot of time with my customers. I practically live with some of them. But I'm always looking for new customers, too. So when I hear about somebody that is getting along without my polyesters, I go to see them. I figure I've got great news for them. And if we don't have the specifications they need, I'll bust my back to get our people to make it for them, as I do for any customer.
Although this man's job is to sell plastics, he is in fact a key figure in a whole pipeline of information as well as goods that stretches forward into the buyer's operation and backward into the production line of his own company. But among salesmen today, he is certainly not unique.
I'm involved with the whole distribution pipeline, too. And I'll go a long way to keep my customers happy. The big difference with me is the size of the customer. This is my customer, a tiny part of my customer. Because my customer is the whole chain, more than 200 stores like this. It's very hard for the ordinary shopper to conceive of the size of this operation.
Certainly one of the major changes in the U.S. marketplace, which makes the role of many salesmen quite different, is the growing importance of the big customer. This is one distribution center for one district of one food chain. Today, some 300 buying offices throughout the country account for 80% of all food bought at wholesale. And instead of selling to hundreds of individual stores, the typical food salesman now doesn't sell to any.
I don't do any actual selling here. I do all that at the big office building downtown. I come here because I'm interested and because I like to study every detail of my customer's business. The fact is that I don't really sell these people our product in the sense of persuading them to order a few carloads. I'm not even called a salesman. I'm an account representative. This chain is my account, and they know that my company is spending millions of dollars to move our product through these supermarkets. And my job is to see that the goods flow smoothly, not only from us to them, but also to the ultimate consumer. So I visit these stores and study what's going on. And I visit competing stores, too. Why? Because if I want an executive of my big supermarkets chain to pay attention to my recommendations on promotion, merchandising, shelf display, I have to know as much as I possibly can about retail food distribution.
Now you're coming to what I consider the biggest difference between selling today and selling 20, even 10 years ago. We have to know so much more.
This man sells systems. Specifically, he sells complex combinations of equipment for the automatic processing of bank checks. His customers are big. A bank, for instance, with many branches. When these systems are installed, they have an effect on the customer's operation which is almost revolutionary.
That's why we have to understand the customer's business. When I joined my own company after college, I took a pretty stiff training course to learn about our products and how to sell them. The data processing field is constantly changing, and I've had a lot of refreshers since then to keep up to date. But before I got into my present specialty, I had to take another sort of training course in banking.
A man like this may end up knowing more about the banking business than he does about some departments of his own. But he's no Superman. He's coordinator of a team. This might include, at various times, a mathematician, an industrial engineer, and an all-around liberal arts man. The collaboration of the whole group is what enables him to prepare a complete systems recommendation for the customer.
Selling to retailers, we don't need the same kind of scientific and technical training as the fellows in industry. But the training we do need, we get, or we wouldn't stand a chance against our competition.
For example, several times a year, he lectures to groups of his company's new salesmen on the pull-through effect of national advertising. Some of these new men may have advanced degrees in business administration, advertising, or marketing, but they will still get additional training right from the start, in classrooms and in the field. This kind of field training is also given to salesmen of non-food items sold through stores today.
Wasn't like that in the old days. It was sink or swim. My dad told me about his first job with a small glassware manufacturer. He was just out of college. Didn't know a thing about selling or the glass business. A sales manager with a heart of stone gave him a suitcase full of samples, a railroad ticket, $20 in cash, and a list of stores in Ashtabula, Ohio. But he survived. When I got my present job, I had 8 months of training before they let me go out alone. Hi, Ann, you going in?
What's more, he was paid a good salary during his 8 months of training. And when he finally began to sell, he got a commission, too.
Well, that's how it is in my business. A good salary and a commission added on to it. But if you could see the way our team operates to make a sale, you'd see why we don't operate on straight commission. It might start off with just two of us talking to the bank's vice president in charge of methods. That's a very big job in a bank these days, and it reflects the growing importance of the kind of thing we're selling. The next step might be to show the methods man some data processing machines and bring along the bank's auditor. We begin to exchange all kinds of information with the bank. We find out what their problems are, and we begin to make suggestions on the kind of system applications that might solve them. We argue, ask each other questions, trying to find answers. And when we begin to get some of the broad, general ideas we need, we go around the bank and talk to the people in actual operation. What is being discussed here is methods for magnetic character recognition, which is what those funny-looking numbers on the new checks are for. But all this is still only the beginning. We design and redesign the system until finally we've got all the bugs out of it. And they say, go ahead.
Eventually, the equipment is installed. The salesman knows that his company will have trained the bank people to use it, and that his maintenance men will be on hand to see that everything is working properly. But he continues his close contact with the bank's executive, because this system may need to be expanded or replaced by something newer before many years have gone by.
What with one thing and another, I'd say we spend 80% of our time working on the problems of our present customers.
We seem to have built up a picture here of a new breed of salesman who is a good deal closer to what we might call professional status than his predecessor. Is this really true? The salesmen seem to think so. Now let's hear from their bosses. What has happened to the shoe shine and the smile? Is the old-time personality Superman really obsolete?
The shoe shine and the smile are as good as ever. But I would say the inspirational salesman is obsolete, all right. Or at least obsolescent as far as big business is concerned.
Yes, business is too complicated today for anybody to play it by ear. But I have great respect and affection for the personal salesman because that's the kind I grew up with.
Like many top executives, this man started out as a salesman.
Yes, thank you very much. My first boss would spin in his grave if he could hear some of these young marketing experts talk about customer orientation. He used to roar at us, our machine is the best doggone machine man can make or money could buy. Get out there and sell it. And I sometimes feel the same way when customers start tinkering with our standard specifications. I feel like yelling, leave it alone, you so-and-sos, it's too darn good for you. And a lot of the old personal salesmen felt that way. They were like the old fire and brimstone preachers. So much personal conviction, they actually put the fear of God in the customer. Made him feel he was lucky to be doing business with them. Enthusiasm is still a priceless gift for a salesman.
But not if that's all he's got. He needs knowledge, information, as well as enthusiasm. The inspirational fellas want to play it by ear, fly by the seat of their pants, like the old-time pilots.
I'll tell you another reason the personal salesman has a hard time today. He still operates on the exploded theory that selling is nothing but a personal contest between him and the customer, and that it's just a matter of outsmarting the customer.
I couldn't hold my job 10 minutes if I started trying to outsmart my customer. I talk to the top executives of the food chain. Should I try to outsmart them? Should I try to outsmart their advertising staff or their promotion people? It's ridiculous. I'm actually working with these people, not against them.
The new kind of salesman is different. The modern salesman is a college man to begin with. He can grasp new ideas, new concepts. He's not afraid of responsibility. He's the stuff management is made of these days.
Absolutely true. And yet, my oldest son is getting out of college next year, and when I asked him how he'd like to take our sales training course, you'd have thought I was inviting him to be a dope peddler.
We're up against the same thing. I can't tell whether they object to selling or to business in general. A young man was saying to me the other day, business? It isn't interesting. It's just buy cheap and sell dear. What is there to think about?
I'll tell you this. There isn't a brain on the face of the earth today that's too good or too big to think about the problems of business. Economic problems are the toughest problems there are, and they concern every living soul on this planet. A salesman today is not just trying to get someone to pay a dime for an item that costs a nickel. He's an explainer, an ambassador, if you will. And like any decent ambassador, he's a two-way pipeline to and from the customer.
And yet the fact remains, many a salesman, many a would-be salesman, shrinks from one aspect of the job. He doesn't like the idea of going to see a perfect stranger and asking him to buy something. He hates cold calls.
All right, send him in. The only cold calls that exist anymore are from unprepared salesmen. I'm always delighted to talk with any salesman who knows his own business and understands mine.
The man behind the desk is a customer. In this case, a big one.
Sorry, I haven't met with you before. Just sit down. Thank you.
Now let's visit a smaller one, a retailer.
A couple of years ago, my husband and I decided to open our own business, and we were terribly inexperienced. In fact, 2 nights before the store was to open, we panicked, supposing nobody came. We called the man who had sold us most of our stock, and he came up with a wonderful suggestion. A small ad in our local paper. Here it is. Hundreds of people came. We sold over $2,000 worth of merchandise. We won't forget that salesman as long as we live.
Very good. Well done.
Here is another customer. He manufactures components, orders his raw materials from some of the biggest companies in the USA.
In the old days, as far as our orders were concerned, it was take it or leave it. But not anymore. One of the biggest companies in the country gives my little outfit engineering advice, studies my specifications, and only last year, one of their salesmen made a technical suggestion that saved me $9,000. The new kind of salesman is different.
We have to know so much more.
The big difference with me is the size of the customer.
I'd say it's the emphasis on the customer's point of view.
That's why we have to understand the customer's business.
I'm actually working with these people, not against them.
The salesman today is an explainer, an ambassador, if you will.
He's the stuff management is made of these days.
That's our story. And if there's more competition in selling today, for the well-informed, well-prepared salesman, there's also far greater opportunity.